Oh, hey, I guess it's time for... Okay, so today we're going to focus on transferring facial expressions using IPAdapter and FaceId using ComfyUI. This is something I saw someone ask for on Reddit, so let's put 2 minutes on the clock and let's get plugged in. So this is what the workflow looks like. We're going to be using Controlnet along with FaceId to take a face of a character that we've created earlier and give her facial expressions based on references that we found over the internet. To achieve this, we're going to be using OpenPose Controlnet. So I've set up the Controlnet and OpenPose nodes up here in the upper right section, and to make it easier to go through them, I've split them out so we can see what's going on. We have a load image here where we're loading in a reference image with the expression, and we'll be trying out a couple of expressions that I've prepared. So we load the image here with the reference expression, and then we feed that into OpenPose pose, which then goes into apply controlnet along with the load controlnet model. In this case, I am using OpenPose XL2, which is available on FaceId AI or Hugging Face, if I remember correctly. I also have an output image here just to see what the OpenPose looks like. Now, depending on the expression that you use, you may alternatively want to use Canny. So if we come back to the organized workflow, those Controlnet and OpenPose nodes are organized over here. So we've got the load image, the OpenPose, the preview of the OpenPose, the load Controlnet, and apply controlnet. Now, if we remember when using controlnet, it is applied as a conditioning to your K-sampler. So what we're doing is we feed the positive conditioning over here into apply controlnet, and then from conditioning over to positive. Now, to combine that with the IPAdapter using FaceId, we have here the load reference image where we load up the image of the character that we're going to be applying the facial expression to. We prepare it for clip vision just to make sure that we get the best results, and usually we're going to be wanting to use a portrait image of the character. That then gets fed into the IPAdapter FaceId, which also accepts the model and IPAdapter from the FaceId unified loader, which in turn receives the model from the checkpoint loader. From the IPAdapter FaceId, we then feed that into model, and then the parameters that we're messing around with. And then for the parameters that we're using, we have LoRa strength 0.8. I normally move this between 0.6 and 0.8, depending on the results. And then as usual, the main items that we want to mess around with are weight FaceId version 2 and weight type. And if you want to understand how weight type can impact your image, I have a phenomenal guide to IPAdapter, which I'm linking up here. I suggest you go check it out if you have not used IPAdapter or if you're struggling a lot with it. Beyond that, you want to make sure that you adjust the prompt to take into account the facial expression that you're using, as well as anything that might help the model line up with the image that you're providing, and then you're good to go. So as you see here, I've already prepared a facial expression as well as my character, Marina, which I used in the previous IPAdapter video. If we go ahead and cue the prompt, you can see that we've not only transferred the facial expression, but also maintained a lot of key elements from the character that we're bringing over. Now, this particular iteration is not as strong as the reference image, so let's go in and push another one through. And you can see here, I've simplified the prompt to line up with aspects from my character. And we can see here in this example, once again, it brings in a lot of elements from the facial expression that we're using as a reference, the big open mouth with the smile, the slightly closed eyes. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty good transfer of the facial expression. Now, if we wanted to match it a little bit more aggressively, we can always increase the strength of the controlnet. So here, just for the purposes of the experiment, let's crank it up to 1.5. And we can see by cranking the strength up to 150, it really tries to more aggressively adjust the image to the facial expression. However, in this case, it seems a little bit unnatural, and you need to give the model a little bit of room to try and get it right. But if for whatever reason you're not getting that expression to come through, try cranking up the controlnet. So now let's try a couple of other facial expressions and see how we can transfer them over. Here's a little more aggressively furious one, and I'm going to just bring the controlnet back down to 1.1. Oh, you'll notice that the expression didn't come through, and that probably has something to do with the fact that we need to adjust the prompt slightly. Even though we've got this expression that's screaming in fury, we have here the prompt set as laughing. So we're going to put here angry scream. And then let's see how that comes out. So it seems it's struggling with this one. We'll come back to that. This might be one of those where Canny comes in handy. Let's try this one, which is again a little bit more expressive. And of course, we'll adjust the prompt to take into account the new facial expression. Okay, this one is slightly better. We are getting a bit of that shocked expression, but we're still not quite there. Let's crank up the ControlNet. And there we go. We now have an image that more or less follows the facial expression that we're using. Although, as usual, further tweaking may be required to achieve the desired result. And don't ever discount the power of the model that you're using. And you'll notice one of the issues here is that even though we are using FaceID, the face is not perfectly transferred over to the final image, and that has a lot to do with the model that you're using. So if you're not getting great results, try a different model. Now, to compare, let's try out doing a Canny. So if you're not getting the desired results from OpenPose, you can set up a Canny in a very similar way. Once again, we've got the load image here. We apply the OpenPose pose with Canny Edge, swap out the model for your preferred Canny model, and then feed it into Apply ControlNet. Now, I am not always the biggest fan of using a Canny simply on the basis that I feel that you lose a bit of control when using a Canny, as unless you're ready to go in and start editing the image by hand, you're limited by what the Canny Edge spits out. And if anybody has any suggestions on how to better use a Canny or apply more control when using Canny, please do let me know in the comment section below or come by the Discord, because I would absolutely love to hear. As well as if you have any better SDXL Canny models. So we can see here that the Canny has done a pretty good job of grabbing the overall facial expression. I've dropped the Apply ControlNet to 0.8, as one of the issues with Canny is that it can sometimes pick up details you don't want, and so lowering the strength just gives you a little bit more room to wiggle. And we can see here that once again, the Canny did a pretty good job of transposing that facial expression. Now, one of the benefits of using Canny is that while you do lose a bit of control, it does transfer over the facial expression a little bit more rigidly. If we go back to that image that we had a problem with earlier, let's see how it performs under a Canny. And we can see here with the Canny preview, we are probably going to run into some of the issues that I mentioned earlier, where the Canny has picked up a lot of elements of the face, particularly the hair. And you can see here the issue that I was referring to. Now, one of the things that you can try and fix that by adjusting the threshold. So here I'm going to increase that quite a bit, which will pick up less details from the image. However, one of the downsides of adjusting the threshold is it will grab less details from the image. So it's about finding that perfect balance between keeping enough detail in the image to pass on the facial expression while not losing so much that you lose the expression you're trying to bring over. So we can see here by increasing the threshold, we've now picked up a lot less of the hair, but we've lost a lot of the details in the face. However, at this point, we're still maintaining the key components to show off that furious face. Oh, and the model struggled with that. Let's try it one more time. So there's a couple of things that we can try and do to fix this. This is a pretty good interpretation of the facial expression, but you'll notice there's a little bit of strange artifacting going on here. I've covered this before, and one of the things we can try and do and fix that, which Matteo has provided us, is this little node called IPAdapter noise. So we're going to go ahead and just grab that and feed that into the IPAdapter FaceID image negative. And what that will try and do is, if we preview it, feed in this noise as a negative conditioning, which should help us reduce the amount of artifacting that we're getting in the image. And there we go. It's not perfect. We still have a little bit of artifacting, but with further fine tuning, you can get to a positive result. And let's try one more. And there you have it. With a little bit of tweaking and further iteration, we've been able to pass this facial expression to this character. So what did you guys think? Was it helpful? If you found it informative, please don't forget to like and subscribe. As usual, the workflow will be available to everyone on my website, and a version with upscaling and a few other bits and bobs will be available to my patrons. If you want to support the channel, please come and check it out, as your support helps me make these videos. We also have a Discord where you can come, ask questions, and hang out with the community. We're going to start running competitions soon, and I may have some prizes for you. Thanks, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.